So what I want to talk about in this episode is I want to bring together the sales training that I'm doing and the body language that I'm doing, or body language series that I'm doing. And ultimately, I use body language and nonverbal communication in sales all the time. And the reason why I would like people to start using it more is because it gives you a distinct advantage where other people don't have it. So today I'm going to talk about 3 things that clients do that you can see, and 3 things that us as salespeople can do better to develop and portray better body language to our clients. Stick around. So when it comes to client interactions, sales, all that kind of stuff, the biggest advantage that I've seen or I've personally experienced when it comes to body language and nonverbal communication cues really comes from when I'm first meeting people or I'm first trying to develop relationships and gain interest, right? And the biggest part of that is something like a conference. So at a conference, let's say you're there for 8 hours, and in that 8-hour period, you have 2 breaks that are half an hour each and 1 lunch break. So there's, on average, let's say a decent sized conference or a big size conference in the energy space, there's a couple hundred people or up to 1,000 people. And you have 2 hours of uninterrupted time or non-conference time that you're trying to get as many introductions, as many prospects as you can. And you have to remember, in that 2-hour time, people are returning phone calls, they're having lunch, they're talking to their friends that they also have at the conference. So the 2 hours is really limited down, right? So let's say at best you've got an hour throughout that whole time. So where I use nonverbal communication for that is I like to try to find the things that are telling me that a client is interested in what I'm saying quickly, so I can move along between clients if I'm not getting interest cues quickly. Let's be honest, in business, in professional settings, we are all we're polite. We've been taught to be polite. Not a lot of people come up when you start talking to them and say, you know what, I'm not interested, move on to the next guy. They'll politely nod and take whatever experience that you're telling them. All right. What we want to do is be able to determine whether or not they're actually interested through a couple key body language things that we can do or we can look at, and move along quickly. So the first thing I want to say from a client perspective is to watch their feet. Right? I've talked about this in prior nonverbal videos, and watch their feet. Their feet are the most honest part of their body. When you're talking to them, if they are nodding away and and they're kind of seeming a little bit disinterested and they're kind of giving you the politeness, but their feet are shifted towards something else or away from you, they're not really all that interested. They've got something else going on. All right, they might have to use the washroom, they might be starving, they might have to get on a phone call, but they're being polite and they're giving you some time. What I would typically do in this situation is thank them for their time, get their card, acknowledge the fact that they need something, they have something else they're potentially looking to do, and scheduling a time that is better for both of us, where we are both fully engaged. All right, typically catches them a little bit off guard, because usually the salesperson doesn't usually say, hey, I kind of am noticing that you're a little bit disengaged, but I'd like to continue this conversation with you later. Can I have your card? And then giving them a call. And it catches them off guard, but at the same time, they appreciate it. So watch their feet. All right, watch their feet, see where they're going. Number 2 is their torso. All right, watch their torso if you're sitting down. Right, so a lot of times at these conferences, people are sitting down, having lunch, whatever. They'll finish their lunch, but they'll stay at their tables. So if you go up and approach someone and sit down at their table with them and start having a conversation with them, watch their torso and watch what their eyes and technology are doing. Right, so it's kind of it's a bit of a combo. But if they're doing this, they're sitting down and they start doing this and they're looking at their phone, or they're watching you, but they're looking around, they're not interested. Right, they're just not. Find a way to disengage, thank them for their time, and move on. If they're leaning into you, right, if they're leaning into you, they're showing acceptance, they're not looking at their phone's on the side, and they're actually paying attention to what you're saying, they're interested, they're engaged. Continue working with that prospect, continue developing that relationship. And then number 3 is learn to understand the mismatched verbal and nonverbal cues. So one of my first videos I ever did on nonverbal, I was talking about congruence, right? What's being said has to match with what's not being said. So if they're saying things that aren't matching with what their body language is actually representing, then usually what that means is they're just being polite. Like I said, these are 3 core things to look for to try to give you guys some more time back. So outside of these 3 things, like I said, if their feet are pointed towards you, their hips, their torso, everything's pointed towards you, they're engaged, head's tilted to a side maybe, or they're leaning in, that means engagement. Continue moving with that client, right? Continue moving forward, developing that opportunity. But if their feet are pointed away from you, they're leaning back, they crossed a leg, they crossed their arms, right? They're just sitting there kind of giving you the time because they got nowhere else to go and they're being polite. Thank them for their time, get a card, and engage with them at another time, right? You have a ton of people to go and meet. You have up to 1,000 people you need to go and talk to. Don't waste your entire time with one person who's just being polite. Okay, so that's customer cues or client cues. Next part I want to talk about is salespeople cues. So our cues. What can we do better to portray body language to other people in a positive manner? And the reason why I want to talk about this is because, like I mentioned in my first video on nonverbals, 93% of what is communicated is nonverbal. So that, and as we're kind of trained as children to read and understand these nonverbal cues. So even though we could have more training than other people, they're going to still read into things if we're doing the wrong things. So again, torso, legs, feet, paying attention, right? These are all that's number 1 for what we can do better. Make sure that you are engaged with the client when you're talking to the client. It seems like the simplest, stupidest thing possible. People are so bad at this, where you'll be talking to a client and then you'll start to drift away because there's something that catches your attention. Maybe there's another client over there. Maybe there's a friend. Maybe there's a colleague, someone you used to know, hot girl in the corner. Who knows? Right? Fact is that people are so bad at paying attention to other things going around them that you lose interest from your client and they start to feel like they are not your key focus. They are not your primary interest at that point. Make sure everything that you're doing is focused on that customer. That's number 1. Okay. Number 2 is put away the technology. Don't have your phone out while you're talking to a client at a conference, in a sales meeting, whatever. Don't have your phone out, and honestly, get a book, right? Get a simple book that you can write on with a pen. I get it. I love technology. I once had an iPad that I used to bring around and I'd write on it, but I'd make sure I told the client every single time before I pulled the iPad out that I'm pulling this out as a notebook and that's it. I'm paying attention to you, because a 2-second distraction on a phone, an email comes in, a message comes in, whatever, you pull your phone out, the client immediately disengages. Right? Think about it from the other way. If you're talking to a client and they pull their phone out, you're immediately feeling like you've lost that client's attention, you've lost their interest, and they're more interested in what's ever on their phone. So put your technology away, pay attention to your client. Okay. And number 3 is eye contact. This goes back to kind of number 1, where I was mentioning don't be distracted. Don't move your body around too much when you're talking to a client. I'm still keeping eye contact right now, but I'm moving my body. If you are constantly looking around, you're disinterested, you're looking at the table over there talking, you're looking at the food, again, hot girl in the corner, right? You're looking at everything else but your client, they're going to lose interest and they're going to not want to engage for any kind of long-term partnership, solution, whatever. So just to recap everything, because I know this has been a bit of a longer video for me anyways, 3 client cues to watch out for. Watch the feet, watch the torso, watch the legs, right? Make sure they're all pointed at you, they're all interested, client is engaged. And watch for mismatching verbal and nonverbal cues. Make sure everything lines up. And for your cues, right, for how we can do better, again, torso, legs, keep engaged, right? Keep everything pointed forward, keep everything pointed at the client, engage with the client. Number 2 for us is put away the technology. And number 3 is maintain eye contact, right? Don't stare them down because it's crazy. It's psychopath shit. But maintain eye contact to maintain that client's focus. Okay. So these are really quick couple things that I want to start talking about to bridge the gap between nonverbal communication and sales development that I'm building between the two of them and how they both work together. So stick around, guys. More videos like this coming out every single day. Like always, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, hit the bell. New video coming out tomorrow and every day. Thanks.